Dr. Vella here. We are working on page 60 in the gum book. This is very similar to the format that your upcoming quiz will have because all the different phrases are thrown in. These are the only options we have on this page. We have prep, participle, gerund, and infinitive. Okay, so this page doesn't have the appositive. Now, one thing I want to recommend to you is that you really focus on the first underlined word. In each group of words that is underlined, focus on the first word. That's going to give you the clue. Okay? All right, so considered by many the best jazz improviser, Yardbird Parker played alto sax, composed music, and originated bebop. Okay, the first word is considered. We notice it has an ED on it. There is only one phrase that starts with a verb that can end in ed, and that is the participle phrase. And we see certainly that this participle phrase is modifying Yardbird Parker. It's telling us about Yardbird Parker. Who is he? He's considered by many the best jazz improviser. He composed music, originated bebop, regarded as the pace-setting jazz style of the mid-20th century. Look again. First word, regarded, ends in ed. The only thing it can be is a participle. It's modifying bebop. Now, to get the points on the quiz, you don't need to tell me what it modifies. All you need to do is be able to tell me that it is a participle. Okay? Here the first word is of. Of, we know it's got to be a preposition, right? There's absolutely no other way. It has to be a preposition. Starts with of. Now we need to decide if it's an adverb or an adjective. How is it being used? Well, it's modifying style. It's telling us what kind of style? The style of the mid-20th century. So that means it is a prep adjective. Adjective. Okay? Parker collaborated with Dizzy Gillespie. That also, look at that first word, with, it's got to be a prep, okay? And now that we know it's a prep, we need to decide if it's an adjective and adverb, and we see here it's telling us how Parker collaborated. He collaborated how? He collaborated with Dizzy Gillespie. That makes it an adverb. To define jazz. When the first word is to, you have to look at the second word. If the second word is a verb, you know it's an infinitive. If it's not a verb, then it has to be a preposition. Here we see to define. Define is a verb. This has to be an infinitive. Number 6, the word for has to be a preposition here, so we know it's a prep phrase. And it has to be an adverb because it's telling us when they define jazz. They define jazz for 2 decades. So prep adverb there. All right. Number 7. Listening to swing music in the 1930s moved Parker toward his own new style. All right. Listening. These are the toughest ones, guys, when you have the first word end in ing. Because it can be a gerund or it can be a participle. A participle modifies a noun, a gerund is a noun. All right? So, if I look here, the verb in this sentence is moved. Who or what moved Parker? Listening to swing music in the 1930s moved Parker. Therefore, listening is the subject. If it's a subject, it's a noun. If it's a noun, it's a gerund. Toward his own new style, number 8, that has to be a preposition because toward is a preposition. And we know it's an adverb because it's telling us where it moved Parker. It moved Parker where? Moved him towards his own new style. He also gained experience playing with various bands. Here's again another ing. We've got to decide. Gerund or participle. And here it's a participle because it's modifying experience. What kind of experience? Experience playing with various bands. That means it has to be an adjective, which means it has to be a participle. Let me just put that down here. Okay? If a word ends in ing, if it's used as an adjective, then we know it's a participle. If it's used as a noun, then we know it is a gerund. Okay? That's it. Pretty straightforward. All right, few more here. Number 10. To is the first word. Well, however, to follow their own musical ideas, he and Gillespie founded their own ensemble in 1945. To follow. Whenever we see to, we know we have to look at the second word. The second word is a verb, to follow. That makes it an infinitive. All right, in 1945, in is always a preposition, so we know it's a prep. And this tells us when they founded their ensemble. So that means it is an adverb. All right. Numbers 12, 13, 14. Parker incorporated many musical voices into his music, from American folk songs to modern concert music. Okay, now one thing we see here, guys, is with all three of these, into, from, and then to, they've all got to be preps, right? They all have to be preps. Into is a prep, from is a prep, and to is a preposition when it's not followed by a verb. Remember, to with a verb makes an infinitive. So, Parker incorporated music voices into his music. The tough thing about this one is recognizing that into his music is an adverb, because it's telling us how or where he incorporated, right? Whereas from African American folk songs to modern concert music, both of those are adjectives because they're both describing the musical voices. Which musical voices? Musical voices from African American folk songs, musical voices to modern concert music. So those are ADJ, adjective, adjective. All right, just a couple more, guys. His style, punctuated by quick tempos and accented by sudden pauses and endings, became the root style of many subsequent jazz musicians. Again, first word, punctuated, ed, accented, ed. There is only one kind of phrase where the first word ends in ed, and that is a participle. And both of these participles modify style. His style, what kind of style? A style punctuated by quick tempos. What kind of style? Style accented by sudden pauses and endings. Okay? Good. We're almost there, guys. Of many subsequent jazz musicians, of has to be a prep. Okay? And this one is a prep adjective because it's telling us what kind of style. The style of many subsequent jazz musicians. Sadly, Parker's death at the young age of 34 ended a career of remarkable music making. I'm surprised in our grammar book they didn't talk about his heroin use, because that's why Charlie Parker died at 34. Charlie Yardbird Parker. Very sad. All right, look at this. At, of. All we had to do was look at the first word and we realized all three of these are prepositions. At is always a preposition, of is always a preposition, and it appears in those two places. Okay? All right. So, I'm going to go backwards here. Number 20, a career. What kind of career? A career of remarkable music making. That means that that preposition is an adjective because it's modifying career. His death at the young age of 34. What age? The age of 34. So that means that of 34 is also an adjective. And lastly, his death at the young age. Which death? His death at the young age. So it modifies death. And we again have an adjective. So we had three prep phrases in that sentence. All three were functioning as adjectives. All three ultimately modified a different adjective, though, not the same. Okay, that is page 60. We will do another one like this that includes a positives, and that's going to be the exact format of the upcoming quiz. Okay? All right, this is Dr. Vela signing out.